Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Today we're on Cotswold Way, part 15, can you believe? We're now heading back in the village of Alderley, so we're heading away from here, continuing our journey south. We're going to cover a mill at Kilcot. We're then going to uncover the story of another monument, and I'll tell you about that. And we're then heading to a National Trust property, yes, another one. We're then going to do a loop back, so normally I would end the journey there and we'll continue the journey obviously on 16 further south, but instead this time we're going to do a loop, so we're going to make it a circular loop, yeah. And then we're going to take in a pretty Cotswold village, and I'll tell you all about that as we continue. Anyway, hope you can join me on the tour here today, back on the Cotswold Way. So different conditions again today. When I did the Cotswold Way, part 14, yes 14, unfortunately it got a little bit curtailed. I didn't get on as far as I would have liked because the rain came down quite heavy and it meant I had to put my camera away. Couldn't do any filming. Today there might be the odd shower, but should be no more than that. And I've just checked, well, when I left the car the temperature was about 16.5 degrees. Probably warmed up a degree or two since I've just done a piece to camera, probably about 18 now. I think it's going to peak around 19 today. Mainly cloudy today, but sunny spells, but the sun has just come out, which is most welcome. But it's not too warm, and again, so it's perfect walking conditions here in the southern part of the Cotswolds, or as it used to be known, the South Wolds, as a name from the early 19th century, which is long gone out of use, should I say. And the landscape, as you'll see, it's a lot softer. We've left the harder, steeper scarps behind now, and we won't see those again until just before we get to Bath. And one of the hills as you come into Bath, if you know the approach to Bath from the A46, which is the road that comes down from Evesham through Cheltenham and Stroud, it then comes down very steeply before it gets into Bath and approaches the A4, the main London to Bath road. To the left of that, as you're coming down that hill, is Salisbury Hill. Yes, the one and the same. Now, for some reason, when that was a hit with Peter Gabriel back in there a long time ago, 1977 maybe, for some reason Salisbury Hill, I had it in my mind it was in South Africa, as some far off continent. I had no idea it was probably only 30 miles away from where I was actually living at the time. No idea at all. It's not that well known, and it's something I'd like to explore in a future vlog because it's supposed to be a wonderful sight. It's certainly wonderful as you approach Bath, but I've never actually walked up it. I've just dropped in a photograph there of the signpost showing that we're on the Cotswold Way. We're just following this road here, just checking there's nothing behind me. And you may have seen that it said Cotswold Way, and underneath that it says the Monarch Way. So actually this is a dual national route. I don't know how many times that happens, can't be very often. Well, just doing a piece to camera. Sorry, I need some water. Just walked up the hill. Just doing a piece of camera. Slight problems recently on the route. First of all, that as I was doing that piece to camera, I was in the middle of talking about the Monarch's Way. More on that in a sec. But the road was extremely busy. There was a road race, a cycle road race going on. There was a running race going on, added to which there was lots of heavy tractors going by. It was chaos. So I gave up doing pieces to camera. Also, I do apologise, I've completely walked past Kilcott Mill because it's behind you as you're walking forward and it's off adjacent to the road. I completely didn't see it. So I haven't yet covered Kilcott Mill. I will get there on the way back. We will cover it, don't worry. Yeah, I was just saying about Monarch's Way. I can't remember all the details. They're going to appear up on us a subtitle now, scrolling across the screen. But basically, that route there, the road, another reason it's busy is it's sharing the National Trail with the Monarch's Way. I haven't done the Monarch's Way and I don't intend to because I think it's 623 miles long. It'll appear down here. And it goes right into Sussex, Devon, all over. Far too far geographically for me to do as day trails. It's just no non-starter. All I can remember, and as I say, the details are appearing now, it's something to do with a king who was escaping, fleeing, and that was the route that he took. But all the details will be down there for you to read. Anyway, we're going to continue along this beautiful view here we've got at the moment. Absolutely stunning. Look at it. It's almost like a painting. It's a Constable painting. I know we're not in Suffolk, but yeah, it's a beautiful countryside here. We're going to continue on until we get to the Somerset Monument, and then I'll do a piece of camera there to tell you all about the Somerset Monument. Wonderful field behind me, which has been left fallow, and it is full of dandelions, which is wonderful because although some people may curse them if they find them in their lawn, their home, in the gardens, in a field they provide a wonderful source of pollen for butterflies and moths, which is great for biodiversity and keeping the pollinators alive. Now approaching the summit here. It's a bit of a steeper climb than I thought. I said the Southwolds, in old terminology, was a lot less hilly. Obviously it's not as steep as what we've seen when we were doing Cleve Hill, Painswick Beacon and Broadway Tower. Not the giddy heights of those, but yeah, it was still a bit of a climb up. Obviously we were deep in the valley by the mill that you didn't see, you will see later, and so it was a sharp steep climb. Then we came up to the dandelion field, which looks gorgeous, and now we've right in the crest of the ridge now on this stony track, and I think it's actually used by forestry vehicles because just behind, or rather behind you as you're looking at the screen, behind me should I say, at the back of the screen is another plantation where wood is grown for commercial use. Now, according to my Earth map, and if I've got my bearings right, just around this bend we should be able to see the Somerset Monument. Hence why I'm walking backwards, because I think it's just round here. So yeah, it's a stony track, so I'll try to walk on the edge a bit because I don't want to trip up over the rocks that are behind me. But my madness will become clear because Somerset Monument, it looks a bit like the one we saw at North Nibley, the Tyndall Monument, but it was to commemorate Lord Somerset, who fought in the Battle of Waterloo, and it was to commemorate his army endeavours. Anyway, I'm going to just move out the way just so you can see it, I believe, there. One thing I forgot to say as we approached the Somerset or Hawkesbury monument, as it's also known as, was that on that infamous road where I couldn't do any pieces to camera because it was so been busy with tractors and runners and cyclists and goodness knows what else, we crossed over the border, so we're now in South Gloucestershire. So at some point along that road, it isn't marked at all, we crossed the county border, so we're now in the county of South Gloucestershire, which I've mentioned before. And this almost takes us to the city of Bath, but not quite, because we cross over into another, well, sort of county. It's called Baines, which stands for Bath and North East Somerset. So Bath isn't in South Gloucestershire, it's actually in Baines, which is another administrative county which came out of the former county of Avon. Here we are at the Somerset Monument, and I've just got the old Richard Sale book just to give you a little bit of background about the monument here and why it's here. The monument was erected in 1846 to the memory of General Lord Robert Edward Henry Somerset. That's quite some name, which explains the alternative name of Somerset Monument. General Somerset was a member of the Beaufort family. Now, we've come across them before with their connections to Badminton, which is perhaps another village I will explore, which is also in the Cotswolds, a little bit further south and to the east of here. And as it says, there's whose seat is at nearby Badminton. He served under Wellington and was commended by Parliament for his enthusiasm at the Battle of Waterloo. And it does say in the book, for a small fee the walker can climb the tower given the last panoramic views from the high scarp on the southern transit of the Cotswold Way. Well, there is a viewing point just on the other side of the road. It is a little bit noisy, I don't know what I can get from that point there, but we'll give it a go. But unfortunately, I don't know whether it's COVID or not, the garden around it is maintained. It is like a grassy area with some shrubs, has been cut, but the access gate into it is currently locked. There's no sign as to the reason why. I don't know who owns it. It doesn't look like it's English Heritage or National Trust or anything like that, so that will give us access. So unfortunately, this is as close as I can get. I will take a couple of photos of the detail on the monument because they do look interesting with my telephoto lens later on. Anyway, catch you in a bit. Now, Natural England have kindly provided an access route across this field and kept the hedgerow here as well. Just on looking at the left of the screen, my right, that it gives us an alternative to the road. I don't think the road, which takes us down to the bit before we turn off, because it heads off before we get to Hawkesbury Upton, so we're going to visit that village on the way back again. It gives us a breather away from the road. It seems to be quite busy actually, this road, so I'm glad to be away from it, and it's a nice hedgerow there. I can see some butterflies and moths busying around, which is obviously it's doing its job. To the OS map, and the lane that I'm currently walking along, we've just left the outskirts of Hawkesbury Upton. We'll be exploring both Hawkesburys on the journey back, and I'll put up an OS map to explain all about that. And our final destination today will be the National Trust at Horton. But this lane is called Bath Lane, and you may have noticed that I did a very quick piece of video on the edges of Hawkesbury Upton, which showed a pond, a bit of reed edged pond, and it's called Drover's Pond. And putting two and two in together, I think that this lane, being called Bath Lane, would have been the old drover's route to take farmers' cattle to market in Bath. I just love blackberries. Really, really great. Now it says on my map, which was published in 2015 for this area, so about 6 years ago, that the site behind me was a motocross site. So I was expecting, as it's a Saturday morning, to go past here expecting noisy engines and all that type of thing, which is fine, but not really if you want to enjoy the quiet of the countryside. However, I'm pleasantly surprised today to see that he has been chained, although I don't really approve of it like that, as I'll explain. It now looks like, probably see those fences there and blue tubs which are storing grain. It looks like it's a breeding pound for game birds. I've just seen a few flittering around the hedges here and darting off as I've been walking past. So obviously they breed them to shoot at the appropriate season. I'm not sure when that is. Is it November, October? I don't know. I don't know where they're shot or where they take them to, or whether it's on the ground here. I can't see any sign of that, but I can hear some shooting in the distance, probably over at Hawkesbury Common. But yeah, change of use here, certainly over in the last 2 or 3 years. Yes, I'm not a lover of blood sports, and so I don't really approve of wildlife being only grown just for pleasure of being shot. Just kind of goes to going. I'm actually a vegetarian myself. Nothing against people who eat meat, but I've been vegetarian for over 30 years now, and I would prefer these fields to be used for growing crops that we can actually use to eat, food that we can eat, rather than for animals that are just going to be shot for pure pleasure, not even eaten. Beautiful beech trees in front and behind me at the moment. A sudden change of use from those poor birds being bred for shooting to these. I much prefer this landscape here in the woods. It's calmer, although I can still hear the shooting. You might be able to pick that up on a soundtrack just down in the valley. It's calmer here, and greater biodiversity in terms of nature. I can see lots of plants and animals growing on the woodland floor, and also horse chestnuts. I can see conkers on the ground as well, so there's horse chestnut trees around here, and also blackberries, lots of blackberries, lovely scrummy blackberries and bilberries here in the woods. And I'm sure in the springtime these woods are an absolute treasure as well, with wood anemones and bluebells. We're continuing on. I think we're about half a mile now from Horton Court and the village of Horton, or hamlet should I say. We're going to have a look at church. I'm not sure it's going to be open. I'm going to stop there for lunch and then continue the journey, which that'll be the end of the Cotswold Way here at Horton when we get there. It won't be the end of today's vlog. So bearing in mind everything you see after I've had lunch, I'll make it clear it won't be on the Cotswold Way. It'll be my route back to where I parked my car. Just seen some more trail signs around. National Trust ones this time. I presume we must be on National Trust land now. Beautiful view opening up. I'll just spin round and show you the view shortly. But yeah, it says from court to fort. Well, obviously court is Horton Court, which we'll go and have a look at shortly. Just bear in mind it won't be open to go inside. I can show the outside and explain the history, but it's also let as holiday lets, so yeah. The fort bit, I don't know. If I find out what the fort is from court to fort, I'll let you know. But wonderful view here. Now it becomes clear what court to fort means, because where I've just walked that path there, you can just see on the right, middle right of the frame, that walked around the upper edge of a fort, and you can see there the scarp of it. So the top of it was at the top to the right, far top right of the screen there underneath the tree, and the valley continues. And the court itself and the church is just beyond those trees, and we'll go and have a look at that now. Well, we've arrived at this delightful spot here at Horton, which includes Horton Court, which is owned by the National Trust, and it's let out as holiday lets, part of it, although occasionally the whole of the court is open to the general public. And we also have the 14th century church of St James, which I think may be open, so we're going to have a look around the outside and then inside as well. And we'll see if we can get some shots of the court before we have a look at the rest of the village. But before we do all of that, a couple of things to mention. First of all, that from this point on, after I leave here, I'll be returning to my car, not via the Cotswold way, but I will be including lots of bits and pieces en route, so just bear that in mind. That's not actually part of the official Cotswold way, because I think they're interesting enough to include them here on the vlog. Second thing is Richard Sale. The old book. I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about the background to the court, because I've never been here before. I don't know anything about it either, so I thought I'd read this so we learn together about this wonderful, beautiful place here, and I'll put some shots in as I'm talking to you as well. Horton is another village whose name derivation is the subject of discussion. It could be Herut Dun, the Hill of Stags, or Horotun, the town in the mud. That doesn't sound great. It's far more beautiful than that, so I hope it's the former. Horton Court is open to the public. Well, it says, but it isn't at the present time. But obviously, look at the National Trust website if you're interested to see when it is open for a full visit. It is a considerable claim to being the oldest inhabited house in England, as well as in the Cotswolds. I'll read that again. It has a considerable claim to being the oldest inhabited house in England, as well as the Cotswolds. That's quite some claim. The hall being the remains of a Norman house built in the first half of the 12th century. The Norman Robert de Teruni was granted the manor after it was confiscated from the Saxon Lord Ulf, a son of King Harold. Ulf escaped death at Hastings, possibly by not being there, but refused to acknowledge William and was banished to Normandy. The house built at Horton was domestic and unfortified, one of very few known. The hall is all that now remains of the house, and the roof is 14th century. The principal remaining Norman works on the north and south doorways. Even the windows have been replaced some 200 years after the original construction. It seems likely that the reason for the major renovation work in the 14th century was that the excess thrust by the original roof had caused the walls to bow outwards. Inside the hall there is a small museum containing articles but not directly connected with it. There is a collection of pewter on a table constructed from a single huge tree, which has only 4 legs despite its length. There's also a collection of armour of the Civil War period and some bicycles, including a penny farthing. The Tudor Gothic court itself was added to the hall around 1520 by Dr. William Knight, who held the prebend or canonship of Horton. Knight is an interesting figure, another who rose from lowly beginnings to high distinction under Henry VIII. His doctorate was in law, and he was for a time Henry's chief secretary. He was an eminent churchman with positions in the cathedrals of Lincoln, Bangor and Salisbury, and was such a brilliant diplomat that he was appointed prothonotary and sent to Rome in 1527 to negotiate with the Pope for Henry's divorce of Catherine of Aragon, which in St James is a basic 14th century construction, though it was much modified in the 15th and 16th centuries. In the porch, look for the figure of the man with bagpipes on one of the supporting columns, so we'll go and have a look at him and see if we can find him. Inside the church, the nave was separated from the north aisle by 14th century arcade, to the west end of which is a gargoyle-like figure of a man with his tongue sticking out. We've come across those when we were at Winchcombe, didn't we? Look also for the memorial to Anne Paston in the chapel at the end of the north aisle. She was married to John Paston, whose family had owned the manor since 1552 and died in 1731. After lauding her as a most loving wife, a tender mother, a faithful friend, it notes that she died by a most tedious and painful sickness, suffered with the greatest courage and patience. Even allowing for the proviso on courage, it is unusual to see death referred to in such honest terms. Now, just as I close this section here in piece to camera, I won't do any more piece to camera until I return to Alderley. I'm just going to use a camera, so I would be including shots, there'll be some music and subtitles to explain where we are. I've also inserted now, you'll have seen them already, some photographs which I'm going to take in a minute, but I'll do a spin round as well. Hope you enjoyed Horton, and we will continue the Cotswold Way number 15 from here in a southerly direction next time, but where we're going to continue on towards back to Alderley via Hawkesbury. So now we've just been walking back towards Alderley. We've just come across that busy lane that I talked about earlier when we were coming across that this morning, when there was we had runners and cyclists, teams of speed cyclists in groups and tractors. Thankfully it wasn't anywhere near that busy. I managed to get some shots of Kilcott Mill, and I just while I'm in the area, it's a private residence, so I don't want to do a piece to camera right next to the property, so I've just come over here. It's literally a minute's walk down, just down the lane there. And I'm just insert, as I'm talking to you, some of the photographs I took. The mill itself is now a ruin, and there isn't actually access to the pond itself, but it's still a delightful and characterful little spot. So I just read what Richard Sale had to say about it. The derivation of the name Kilcott is disputed. It could be from Sillicott, the cottage of Scylla, or from Kil-y-Coed, the wooded valley. Certainly the latter still stands as a descriptive name for the valley. Well, yes, it does. It's deeply and heavily wooded, as we've seen, and it's a delightful valley to walk through. Kilcott Mill is past, one of several on the Kilcott stream that help the general prosperity of the area. There is still a large mill pond, proverbially calm, and it says the way continues along the lane until the hamlet of Lower Kilcott is reached, which I did see, but sadly now that is a completely enclosed property. It has been renovated, but there is no access to get to it. Now, I hope you enjoyed the pictures on the way back. At Hawkesbury, it was delightful in one sense that there was a wedding taking place, and there was a horse and carriage outside the church, which is a photographer's dream to see that. I wasn't expecting that, but sadly it did mean I couldn't actually get into the church because the wedding was taking place. Anyway, we're going to head on towards Alderley now. Before we do that, we're going to play the game of Name That Tree. Yeah, it's time for Name That Tree. And this is a wonderful tree. I'll insert a photo of the leaf and a photo of the berries, because it's now September, so we do have berries on the tree, which makes identification easier. In fact, this is an easy one. This is an easy one to guess. I'm covering it because I wanted to mention the difference between, well, there's two different types, and it's not always that well known. So this is the commoner variety, and there's a different variety as well, which you also see in this area, which is why I'll mention it. So yeah, we've got the leaf itself, and I say I've done a photograph. It looks a bit like a tiny oak leaf, but it's not a member of the oak family. In fact, this tree is a member of the rose family, and it comes in a different variety as well. But this is the common hawthorn, and the Latin name is Crataegus monogyna, and it's not to be confused with a very similar species called the Midland hawthorn, which is known as Crataegus lasvigata. Now, the difference between the two is that if you slice one of these fruits open, so I can just do that with my finger on the camera there, you'll notice, gone all mushy, thought it might, you'll notice inside there is just one stone. Now, if this was a Midland hawthorn, you would find two stones inside. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, whereas the leaf here is quite segregated and deeply cut in, the Midland hawthorn is less cut in and it's smoother around the edges. Other than that, the shapes are very, very similar. Obviously you tend to find them in hedgerows, as we've got here. We've got a wonderful hedgerow, fields that side, We've got the crest of the Cotswold Hills just running over there, but this is a perfect, it's also a bit of a drainage to the soil here, so it's not like boggy conditions here, but it is damp, so you've got the water flowing off the escarpment, so it's perfect conditions for this hawthorn to thrive here. And obviously it provides fruit for birds, and obviously in the springtime it's wonderful for pollinators because you get those beautiful white flowers full of pollen that the bees love, and it's also good for butterflies as well. So yeah, the common hawthorn. Well, I'm back at Alderley and back at my car. I hope you enjoyed the journey along the Cotswold Way today. I certainly did, as we went up to the Somerset Monument and down to Horton Court. Horton really surprised me. I hadn't been there before. I thought it was wonderful. Beautiful sense of atmosphere, completely unspoilt, and with that fantastic church which was thankfully open, so we would get inside it, which I found fantastic bit of history as well. And then of course I made my way back via Hawkesbury itself, which is where the wedding was taking place. So I think I recorded, probably be in the video somewhere, the bells and the church tower, and also that wonderful horse and carriage sat outside waiting for to take the bride and groom away. I thought that was wonderful. It was just, though it did mean we couldn't get in the church itself because the wedding was taking place, hey ho, it was still good. And the weather's been great today, is far better than the last time. So we're 3/4 of the way through the Cotswold Way now, so we've got just 5 to go. So next time we'll start back at Horton. There is a village centre as well. We didn't cover that today. The Cotswold Way goes right through the village. We'll then be making our way to Little Sodbury, which has got a church, fabulous church, also a ruined church and a fort, much else besides. And then we'll be going on to Old Sodbury and beyond. Anyway, that lies ahead next time. If you hit subscribe and the bell, then YouTube will tell you when the next Cotswold Way one uploads on my channel. Until the next time, please consider a like, please consider a share, perhaps tell your friends and family if they're interested in doing this national trail here in the southern part of England. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Till the meantime, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, all the best, and cheers, bye bye now.